Good morning. Welcome to First Edition, the online ministry of First Community Church. My name is Glenn Miles. I'm the senior minister in this congregation, and we are thrilled that you've joined us for this time of worship together. We want you to know, no matter who you are, where you're from, where you may be going, you are welcomed and accepted in this congregation just as you are. Right now, there's a QR code up on your screen. Take a moment, would you please, to click on that link that appears on your camera option on your phone, register your attendance, submit a prayer concern if you have one. You can even give for the offering if you choose to do so. We'd love to hear from you. My sermon today is titled, Finish Strong. This is the first part of a three-part sermon series for the month of May. I'm focused today on Saul's conversion. We know him as Paul, but before his conversion, he was Saul. He ended up flat on his back in kind of a spiritual experience where he heard the voice of Jesus, saw a flash of light. He was knocked flat. He was frightened, overwhelmed, and yet it was the beginning of something new. Sometimes in our lives, you and I experience that, don't we? We have some unexpected, difficult moment that just emerges out of nowhere. And the next thing you know, it's something that teaches us, and we find ourselves strengthened and better for the future. I believe the Spirit of God is involved in that kind of action. That's what my sermon's about today. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Let's listen now to these beautiful anthems as we worship together. The Bible is at its most poetic, its most powerful, its most inspiring when it reveals and shares stories, verses, texts, psalms, and poetry during times of upheaval and unrest, during times of uncertainty and fear. Consider the story you know well, the story of the Hebrew nation enslaved in Egypt underneath the tyrannical rule of a terrible Pharaoh. Their lives are helpless. They feel hopeless. They have no future. And yet this vagabond prophet returns from the wilderness where he'd escaped years before. He returns to the very court of Pharaoh with the words of God on his lips. And this one we know as Moses declares to that tyrant, "Let my people go." And out of slavery, out of what looked like a helpless dead end, a new nation is formed. A nation that God calls to be a light to the nations, to the rest of the world. That nation, of course, is formed, and they have issues along the way, different battles here and there. There's a famous one when the army of the Philistines is camped right at the border of Israel. They're ready to put Israel under siege. But as you recall the story of the Philistines, they sent out a giant of a man. His name was Goliath. Think of Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, only taller. This giant calls out and says, "Send me your champion. Let us do battle here. Whoever wins will be declared the winner for their nation. It will save bloodshed. It will save lives. Send me a champion." The Israelites are filled with fear. They can't send, you know this story, don't you? They can't see anyone who would be able to do it except for this young shepherd boy who volunteers. He looks small and inadequate, but he has gifts that the giant can't see, nor can his own fellow soldiers in the Israelite army. He's fast, quick, cunning. He's filled with courage, faith, and hope. All he needs is a slingshot and 5 smooth stones. You know how it ends. Israel is saved. Go a few hundred years from that to a time when a man named Isaiah was prophesying, preaching. It was a time of unrest and uncertainty. Political upheaval was covering the land of Judah. They were overwhelmed with fear. He could see, this prophet could see that they were going to be destroyed, and they were. But in that dark and dangerous time, he had the faith to have a vision, to dream. Do you remember his words? "For unto us a child is given, unto us a son is born, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Prince of Peace." He dreamed of shalom in the midst of war and fear. Move forward to the one named Jesus. At the end of Good Friday, his lifeless body removed from the cross, laid out flat in a borrowed tomb, his life and his movement seemingly dead. It's a dead end. There's nothing that can come from it. His followers, his disciples have scattered to the wind. They're hiding, they're afraid, they're overwhelmed. They can't imagine anything new. The one that they thought was going to bring a new way and a new life to the world is gone. Until Easter morning, when a few of his followers, some women, they make their way to the tomb, not looking for a risen Jesus, but to anoint his body, as was the practice of their faith and their culture. Instead, they encountered the risen Christ. What seemed like no way, they found a way. What seemed like a dead end, they found new life. Elaine Pagels is a marvelous biblical scholar. She says this pattern is found throughout the Bible from the beginning to the end. We heard it just a moment ago from the choir. Once I was blind, now I see. Once I was lost, now I'm found. Once I was dead, now I'm alive. Over and over and over again, the Bible finds a way. The characters in the stories of the Bible find a way where there's no way. Professor Pagel suggests that this gives us a burst of hope. The reason we encounter these stories over and over again and pay attention to them on Sundays, on Wednesday Bible studies, and other times in the life of our church is because they inspire within us hope, and they show us that God's people can find a way when there's no way. The story you heard just a moment ago is about a man named Saul. We'll later encounter him as one named Paul. But this story is set before he becomes Paul, before he becomes that famous missionary who establishes churches all around the Mediterranean area. This famous missionary who writes beautiful letters, inspiring letters that 2,000 years later continue to inspire hundreds of millions of people, followers of Jesus. Before he was that great preacher and missionary, he was Saul, the persecutor. He persecuted Christians in Jerusalem. They were followers of the Way. The Way is an old title, one of the earliest titles for the early church, in the way of Jesus, in the way of Jesus' teaching. He's persecuting them. We don't know why exactly, other than he likes having power and control, perhaps. Now he's making his way to Damascus to persecute followers of the Way there as well. When out of nowhere, there's a blinding flash of light and a thunderous voice, and what happens? He finds himself flat on his back. Overwhelmed, no doubt. The voice asks, "Why are you persecuting me?" He's filled with fear. He's overwhelmed. The story goes on a little bit later. We didn't read all of it. He's blinded. He can't see for 3 days. He can't eat or drink for 3 days. It's fascinating to see that this is his conversion story. It's not a conversion story filled with roses and lovely thoughts and happy feelings and, oh, this is great, you're giving your heart to Jesus today. No. He's knocked down by the voice of Jesus. He's, in some preachers I've read, suggest that maybe he's having a near-death experience. Maybe it's cardiac arrest. And in that moment, have you known people who've had those? I've met them. In that moment, he hears Jesus' voice. It must have seemed like an end for him. It must have been overwhelmingly filled with worry. And yet, it was a new beginning. There's an old movie from back in the 80s. It's called Starman. It's a cheesy movie, but I love it, so just get over it if it's cheesy if you've seen it before. It tells the story of an alien who comes to Earth. He's been sent by his planet to come in and investigate the people of the planet Earth. Well, he's greeted with missiles and attacks, and he survives his landing, but he sends a message back to his people: they're still violent here. We should wait before we try to connect with them again. He receives a message back from his planet saying, we'll meet you at these coordinates, we'll come there, and we'll bring you back home to safety. Those coordinates happen to be Arizona, but he's in Minnesota. What happens is he goes into this home. He's portrayed originally as a glowing ball of light. But he goes into this home, finds a little bit of DNA, takes that DNA. It turns out to be the recently deceased husband of a young widow who lives in that home. By the way, the actor is Jeff Bridges. This is long before his days as the Dude, if you know what I'm talking about. Of course, the widow is stunned and frightened and scared and can't believe what's going on, but eventually he's able to communicate with her and tell her what his mission is and that he needs to get back to these coordinates, which she recognizes as being Arizona. And so the rest of the movie is them taking that journey there. I won't get into all the rest of it until the end. She asks him, "What have you learned about us? What have you learned about humans on planet Earth?" And in his halting voice, he says, you humans are at your very best when things are worst. You humans are at your very best when things are at their worst. We know that in our bones, don't we? We know that deep in our own DNA. We know that in our souls, that we are at our best. Our friends and neighbors, our fellow followers of Jesus, we are at our very best when things are at their worst. We know that's true today. You know, there are some signs here at First Community of new life, of new vibrancy, of new things and opportunities, new ministries and opportunities emerging. If you've been looking around and paying attention, now hopefully you've noticed this. John Gerard, to my left over here, has established wonderful new ministries in our mission and justice areas, organized them now and growing and expanding on what was already there. Had a marvelous foundation to inherit, but it's going marvelously well. Sarah Keats is down at Camp Akita this weekend leading the Camp Akita alumni reunion. I've already gotten notices that it's a marvelous weekend. Camp Akita is restoring itself to its greatness. It's amazing to watch that. Seth and Mary Kate, who are down at South this morning, their ministries are filled with vibrancy and new life and more. The program staff is reaching out in ways that are really exciting. Our new member numbers, if they continue this way, will be our highest new member class since pre-COVID, going back to 2019, maybe even farther back than that. I could go on. There's a lot going on that is exciting, that shows that there's life. Our Holy Week services, Easter Sunday, all of it was amazing. And yet, all of that is tempered by the numbers we heard from John. They sound large, overwhelming. It's daunting. It's a lot. So maybe it would help to know how we got here. In 2017, we completed the most successful campaign in First Community Church's history. $18 million was raised. We moved forward in faith, believing that we had a $22 million plan. Let's go ahead and start that work. We'll take care of the debt 3 years from now. The campaign was begun. Beautiful new buildings and spaces were created here at North, at First Community South, and down at Camp Akita. Well, 3 years later was 2020. It was time to put together the campaign to eliminate the $4 million in debt. You might remember 2020 was sort of a different year than what we'd experienced recently. We put that campaign on hold. It came back out in 2021. We've eliminated $2 million of that debt, but still, it feels daunting, overwhelming. What began 8 years ago is still lingering before us. But we've been here before. We've had seasons in this church since our very beginning that were at times difficult to see a way through, difficult to see what might be next. What's God doing now? How will we get to there from here? I don't see a road or a pathway. We've seen this before. I'm especially thinking this morning of 1926. 1926 is the year that the sanctuary and some of the buildings at 1320 Cambridge Boulevard were completed. It was an exciting time in the life of this church. We'd started in Lincoln Road Chapel, emerged from there, built this brand new, beautiful space, which even today is still absolutely gorgeous, a wonderful place to worship in. But then 1929 comes, and the largest financial crisis this country has ever seen hit all of us, hit our relatives, our ancestors, both in faith and in life. It was daunting, overwhelming. And 8 years after that campaign started in 1926, in 1934, they were looking at $149,000 in debt and $711 in the bank. Now, maybe those numbers don't quite seem as difficult as the ones we're facing today, but put ourselves in that context. Those numbers in those days are huge. $149,000 and a total of $711 in cash. Trust me, the leadership of the church was overwhelmed. The pastors at the time were filled with fear and anxiety and worry. And yet, what did they do? What did they do? They found a way. They found a way where there was no way. They found a way to face their debt, to face their future, and emerged in one of the most promising, visioning, dreaming, amazing times in the history this church has ever seen. It was amazing to read about those 20 years. The seed was planted in 1936. They felt like they were flat on their backs, but they found their way to new life through their faith in God and their trust in each other. Sometimes, in my experience, we have to be flat on our backs before something new can happen. Barbara Brown Taylor, the brilliant preacher, tells a marvelous story about the time she and her husband were exploring the sand dunes on Cumberland Island, just off of the coast of Georgia. Both of them had their heads down. They were walking along the sand. Her husband was looking for fossilized shark teeth. She was just looking out for those little sand spurs, the little stickers that would hurt your feet. She just didn't want to step on those. When all of a sudden they came upon a loggerhead turtle, half buried in the sand. The ocean was that way. They could see the waves crashing, but the turtle was heading this way where it gotten stuck. Immediately they recognized what had happened. The turtle had come on shore to lay eggs, to give birth. And then what would normally happen, the turtle would turn around and follow towards the breaking waves. See the stars, the moon maybe on the reflecting on the water. But instead, the turtle was confused and saw the lights of the mainland and went that direction, thinking it was the way to the water. And now she's dying. They reached down to touch her, and her shell is hot to the touch, almost too hot to touch. So her husband runs to the nearest ranger station. It's quite a ways away, but he's running as best as he can to get there quickly to bring a ranger back. She covers the turtle with cool sand to try to save its life, to protect it from the heat of the sun. Finally, her husband and the ranger come back. The ranger's driving a Jeep. They have a large metal chain on the back of the Jeep. They go over to the turtle. They dig her out of the sand. They gently put her on her back. They take that chain and they wrap it around her back legs. And then they begin to pull her down to the sea, down to the waves, to her natural home. Barbara Brown Taylor says, as she's watching this, she's worried that the turtle is going to break its neck because the way it's bouncing behind this Jeep. It's a nightmarish ride. The turtle must be overwhelmed with fear. Finally, though, they get to the water. They stop. Take the turtle, unleash the chains, gently turn her over, point her toward the waves. And they wait. The first wave, and then the second wave, and then a third. She's lifeless, not moving at all, until a wave comes up and it gently raises her up, just enough, where they see her head move and her legs push down, and she's able to push herself off that sand, and push herself, and push herself, and push herself back to her home, where she can continue her life. Reverend Taylor, reflecting on his whole experience, says, it's hard to tell, isn't it? It's hard to tell whether that hand that's come and turned your life upside down means to kill you or to save you. But I'm here to say to you on this day that the very hand of God is with us, not to kill us, not to push us down, but to bring us to new life, to drag us toward that new life if necessary, to do whatever it takes to bring us to a place of hope, a place of vision, a place where we can see the future ahead. You see, my friends, Easter is not a day. Easter is not a season. Easter is a way of being in the world. Well, I once was lost, but now I'm found. I once was blind, but now I see. I once was dead, but now I am alive. That's the promise of the Bible. That's the promise of our faith. I believe in God. I believe in First Community Church. I believe in you. And I'm certain that together, held by the very hand of God, we can find a way where there's no way. We can find the marvelous future that God has set before us. I believe in God, and I believe in us. Thank you for joining us for worship. I trust you were inspired by the music and motivated by the message. We're going to put that QR code up again for you because we'd love to hear from you if we didn't at the beginning of the service. And also, would you please note the invitation to perhaps make a donation? As you can imagine, it takes a good deal of funding to take care of all the buildings, the choir and the ministers and the staff and the lay leaders and all the rest. We'd love for you to support our ministry. Take a moment and consider